So the next thing we're going to talk about is how the domain Eukarya has 4 major groups of organisms. The first over here is going to be our group of Protists. Our Protists are going to comprise a number of our Protists are going to be found in a number of kingdoms. They're going to range from single-celled forms all the way up to multicellular organisms. Some are going to be photosynthetic. Some must absorb their nutrients from their environment. So they're going to have a wide variety. They're going to be single-celled. They can absorb, photosynthesize, or ingest their food. On the other hand, the kingdom Plantae is going to be multicellular organisms. Things like algae, moss, ferns, conifers, flowering plants, these are going to always be multicellular, usually with specialized tissues, and they're going to be they're going to obtain their energy from the environment by photosynthesizing their food. Funguses, on the other hand, or individuals from the kingdom fungus, can be multicellular. They're going to be mostly multicellular. They might be single-celled. For example, yeast. Yeast is a single-celled organism from the kingdom fungi. But one thing that all members of kingdom fungi are going to have in common is the ability to absorb their food. They're going to have to digest their food externally and then absorb it into the body. The domain Eukarya for kingdom Animalia is going to be multicellular organisms that have to ingest their food. So we're going to see that these kingdoms are going to be primarily divided down into whether they are multicellular or single-cellular and how they obtain their nutrients from the environment. So for example, if I said, hey, we found a new single-celled organism that ingests its food, what kingdom does it belong to? Well, that would be the kingdom Protists, because Protists can either absorb, photosynthesize, or ingest their food, but they are single-cellular. Kingdom Animalia does ingest their food. Kingdom Animalia ingests their food, but they are going to be multicellular organisms. If I said we had a multicellular organism that absorbs its food, well, that could be one of 2 categories. Food absorption can either be the Protists or it could be the funguses. But the multicellular version of the kingdom fungus is only going to be or the multicellular version of an individual that absorbs its food is only going to be found in kingdom fungi. So again, like with the domains, I may give you an example of a new organism and you're going to have to classify it into its domain. And if it is domain Eukarya, there's a good chance you'll have to classify it again down into its kingdom. Like I said before, scientists are going to use a universal system for naming organisms based on their classification. This helps prevent confusion from the use of common names that vary based on culture and language. So we're going to use Latin to help us do that, and that's why, we call it Eukarya and Animalia instead of animal, and Chordata and Mammalia instead of mammal. These are all the Latin terminology. We use Latin since it was considered a universal language not all that long ago. We also use what is known as binomial nomenclature. This just means that we use a 2-part name. The first word is the genus. This is always going to be capitalized. And the second word is going to be the species designation or the specific epithet. So this is going to be written as lowercase. Both words will be italicized. Great example would be Homo sapien or H. sapien, as you'll often see it abbreviated in scientific documentation. Corn is from the genus Z and the species maize. So this is going to be found or classified as Z maize. You may also recognize the term E. coli. E. coli is actually the species designation, the E standing for Escherichia and coli, reference to its particular shape. And so E. coli is actually going to be its scientific name or its scientific designation. All right, that's it for our scientific naming. That's it for our section on evolution and the classification of life. Next up, we're going to be talking about the scientific method and or the process of science.